Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Grit and Bear It podcast, live streaming here. It is a May 9th, 2023, or if you are following along on the audio version of this, it is a Wednesday, May 10th, 2023. It is a good day whenever the Hershey Bears are playing hockey deep into the month of May. It's mid-May. We're moving on. We're pressing on to the next round. And joining me is my partner in hockey, Corey Schwartz of Field Pass Hockey, joining me. Corey, thank you for joining me, brother, and welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Richard. I'm happy to be here. Happy to be in May talking about Calder Cup playoff hockey, especially when it pertains to the Bears here a little bit more. Can't wait to, get back to the Giants Center for some hockey on Thursday and Saturday and, really see where this Bears team is really made of. I think that we had a really good series against the Charlotte Checkers, and the Bears are moving on. It was ironic actually because I saw my Facebook memories a couple of days after the win on Thursday was the 4-year anniversary of when the Bears were knocked out by the Checkers, and so it was surreal kind of seeing the scene we saw last week, but in reverse, kind of the old-fashioned way of seeing the Bears get eliminated and get our revenge 4 years later. So it was neat to see, and I'm really happy to be back at it for another series. Hopefully, get some more revenge for 2015.
Yeah, well, I feel a bit underdressed for this, so let me just get appropriate here. And yeah, there we go. Now we're feeling good into it. All right, here we go. And for all of you that are watching along here on the Hershey Bears fan club page on Twitter, please give a comment during the video. We will read them out during the air, and any questions you might have, you can let us know about it. You have questions? That's understandable. All right, it's time to get into the next round. And Bears fans, this is the matchup we've been waiting for. It's time for two heavyweights to go at it. And on Thursday, your Hershey Bears are going to take on the Hartford Wolfpack. Okay. The Hartford Wolfpack beat the Providence Bruins 3-1. And the big matchup we were expecting against El Guapo is not going to happen as Hartford takes down Providence. Okay, thanks. So now we will be facing the Fighting Dylan Gerards. They're from Connecticut. And as much as speechless and tongue-in-cheek as I'm making this, Bears fans, before we start, do not discount the Hartford Wolfpack at all. They beat Springfield by neutralizing their top lines in Matthew Highmore and Martin Fjork and took down AHL All-Star goaltender Joel Hofer and took down a Providence team that was maybe a little weak down the stretch. Maybe a little weak. So, Corey, we get Hartford.
Yeah, who saw this one coming 2 or 3 months ago? I know I certainly didn't. I don't think that anybody really did at this point. But here we are. Like you said, it was not an easy route for the Hartford Wolfpack to get here, but watch them down the stretch in the final, weeks of the season. It had a feeling that it might come down to, Hartford, at least making a couple upsets. When they upset Springfield, I was a little more convinced that they're, for real here for sure. Not to say that they weren't, but, Springfield was a team that really seemed to have their number at times during the, regular season. They had this 8-game winning streak bookended by losses to Springfield. So it's kind of an interesting series in that, you kind of figured Joel Hofer would be the X factor, the difference maker. And, Hartford played so well. And, obviously I think Springfield kind of let down their goaltender a little bit because he really gave his best, but it wasn't enough. And like you said, not one all-star goaltender, but two in Hofer and Brendan Bussey did not have the answers for their respective teams. And Providence just, I wonder if the length of time they had off did not prepare them well for this series, possibly because they seem to kind of come out of the gate flat. Only 14 shots in their first game. That's about as easy of a shutout as Dylan Garand is ever going to have. But you give a lot of credit to Hartford. They won a lot of close games, and in game 4 especially, it just looked like they had taken this Providence team that was way up here, so consistent, the model of it all season, and they made them look like Boston in some ways, where they just didn't have that oomph. They didn't have that extra it factor. They nullified all of their offensive dynamos. They had Vinny Lettieri, Luke Toporowski, Georgi Merkulov, so many of those guys, they just didn't look like themselves. They didn't look like they could, even hardly get the puck on net sometimes. So very shocked that we're here, but I think this is going to be a really fun series and a really good test.
The two games that Hartford won in Providence were two very close games, 2-1 and 1-0. And the only players scoring in that game for Providence was a player you mentioned very well, I might add, in Luke Rolinski. Oh, that's a bad Scrabble hand if you ask me. But they go up 2-0. There's no way Providence is going to get swept. So they get the offensive guns going for game 3. And out comes Hartford at the XL Center and just wallops Providence. It almost seems like the first two games they beat Providence at their own game. And Dylan Garrard, who's just come on really strong here in the postseason. You thought you'd see Louis Dauming, spicy pork and broccoli and all. Instead, you're going with this college kid who's doing rather well for himself. Kind of reminds you of a certain goaltender over a decade ago that made him a name for himself during the Calder Cup playoffs in Hershey.
Yeah, it's really surprising. Like you said, I would say that Dylan Garrard's regular season numbers were not one that, I think that you would look at and be like, yeah, there's your starting goaltender type of thing. But give him a lot of credit. He's come alive and come on fire at that at the most opportune time. And if I'm the coach, I think the coach made the right decision by not putting Louis Domingue in. Even though they got him back, he's your number one. You go with a hot hand. You roll with it until you absolutely can't, and it absolutely has stopped working. So I think they made the right call in that respect. And you give Hartford a lot of credit. They played some great defense in those games, and they have I think they made the right moves at the deadline that not only bolster the Rangers but bolster the Wolfpack. You think of the Adam Clendennings, the Will Lockwoods of their roster, right? Anton Bleed is another one that I believe was a midseason acquisition for them. The Bears didn't see the last time they played him, so I think that really went and turned them into a contender suddenly, and probably one of the biggest beneficiaries of the new playoff format. Rather than just narrowly missing in the last week, they get to take their chances, make that run, and benefit from the New York Rangers not being able to send anybody up or down towards the end of the season there. It really worked out perfectly for them to break that playoff streak, missing streak back to 2015. And they seem to have the perfect matrix. And you almost just wonder, though, is this going to last forever, or are we due for them to peak at some point? Is this a series where Dylan Garrard looks like his old self? If I'm Hershey, I'm looking at that game 3 as maybe a blueprint here where, Providence was able to hang 6 goals on them, and, the Wolfpack just simply weren't able to, to match that at that point. So maybe that's where you're looking. It's hard to say, but I believe it's going to be a really good series between two teams that I think will get to hate each other very quickly.
Yeah, it's a 5-game set that's going to be stretched a bit, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But some last stats on Dylan. 4th round pick in 2020, 103 overall by the New York Rangers. Regular season this year, 13-14-3 with an 894 save percentage and a 301 goals against average. Oofta. Playoffs, 5-1, 954 save percentage, 117 goals against. Someone is really trying to it's a great story for him to come in here, put on that type of performance, and literally slash in half his goals against average. And the two teams that he played are not slouches in their own division. You've played both these teams about a combined 26 times during the regular season, and you beat both of them soundly. And as much as we talk about Dylan Garand, there's some good players on Hartford. That there is a whole bunch of parts. I don't think there is a high prospect among them, but it's a team that, as cliched as this is, a team that can roll all four lines and beat you in so many different ways. And I think that's going to be the real test for Hershey, as it seems like these two teams are very similar.
Oh, absolutely. And it's interesting you say that, because there's, like you said, there's so many players you could point to, an absolute boatload of guys. I mean, Tanner Fritz is one that, he was absolutely electric in that Providence series. Johnny Brodzinski, that one, finally got him back from the New York Rangers, and he's been great. Will Cooley is, another guy that always seems to kind of come up with big performances. It's a lot like Hershey in a lot of ways, and that, the Bears got that clutch performance last Thursday from Beck Mallenstein, a guy who's on the fourth line, obviously a well-regarded prospect, puts a guy through the glass, literally almost, and, that kind of turns the Bears' fortunes around. They kind of have that X factor of, who's it going to be tonight? Who's the guy that's going to, come out and steal the show in this game possibly? And, I'm very intrigued to see how the Bears are able to match up with that defensively, because they have, the Bears have that same ability. You got, four great centers. You got Scarbosa, McMichael, LaPierre, and Sutter. You have so much firepower. Some firepower. I think the two top scorers in the season series between these two teams are actually sitting on the sidelines for the Bears in Henry Rabinski and Henrik Borgstrom. It's very fascinating to me to see, who's going to pick up that, scoring title. Obviously, the Bears have such a well-rounded offense that it could be anybody at this point. And, the Wolfpack are looking at it in the same way. So for the Bears, it's really got to be defense first, try to limit the Wolfpack as much as they can, and get back to that Hershey Bears hockey that we saw in the Charlotte round that, was helped them to hang up, 5 or more goals in each of their wins for sure. And, I had a great point made to me earlier today too, that, you look at that game 3, it was ugly. The Bears could hardly complete a pass. They could hardly do, a lot of things that they normally do right. And they were in that game up until the final buzzer at 2-1, and it was really just kind of some self-inflicted wounds on those breakaways that ended up being the difference makers. So the Bears, have all the tools in the toolkit to be a team that, is even better than what we've seen so far. And that's what's kind of, tantalizing if you're a Bears fan, I think, at this point.
I said this on the pod back on Monday, what I wouldn't have given to be a fly on the wall during that locker room during the first intermission, what I would not have given to go in there and to wonder who on the Bears just either went nuts or Todd Nelson brought in a chicken, cut its head off and went, "This is what's going to happen to all of you." Something like that. But whatever was said, it worked. Charlotte's done, and we're moving on. And speaking of moving on, we're going to take a short break. And after that, we will hear from Zach here, voice of your Bears, giving his thought in the series, and we'll be right back. And we're back here on the Grit and Bear It podcast special live stream version. And thank you to all of you checking out the audio version as well. As you saw there in the ad that was running, thank you to Raycon for sponsoring this. And thank you to DraftKings as well. And as always, thank you to friend of the podcast, Zach Fish, for giving us his time and insights on the series. Caught him at practice technically yesterday by the time the audio version of this goes out. Always great to hear from him. So, Corey, let's dive into things here on the Bears end. Let's dive into this. First up, the injuries. You can't go through the playoffs without getting a few hiccups and hangups. And apparently the Bears suffered some, not casualties, but some injuries themselves. Aaron Ness going down, Bobby Nardella getting dinged up. Same thing with Ethan Frank. The good news coming from Zach, and you might have heard as well, he was practicing today at the old barn. Good news to hear. But it looks like Aaron Ness is probably going to be out for a while. I know Zach giving us the positive outlook on it that he could return sooner, but I really have no idea what it is. No team's really going to say what it is outside of the dreaded upper or lower body injury. But we got defense to go around, so I think we're going to be okay with players like Logan Day coming in. So your thoughts with Frankie back and the absence of Aaron Ness?
Yeah, just the eye test with Ness's injury in that game as it happened, it didn't look good. I mean, he was holding his whole entire right arm or shoulder, as he was coming off the ice. It just did not have the makeup of even in the moment that he was going to come back from that injury, and that it could cost him some serious time. And it stinks. The Bears had Ness for, I believe, all but 3 games this season. A totally indispensable part. One of the few members of the 300 games played in the regular season club. That's a rare achievement every year now for the Bears. I think it's only 50 some people that have made that kind of thing. And, he's a wonderful guy, a great leader, great veteran presence, such a smart hockey player, But like you said, the Bears have depth on depth. And, you even saw it with the game 4, Jake Massey and Logan Day go in. I don't think that Logan Day should have been pulled from the lineup at all for game 3, personally, because I love his play. He's a guy that you can put out on the power play. Jake Massey's such a fast, smooth skater type of thing. Both of them just, absolutely seamlessly fit in. And I adore those two guys for the work that they do. And, that role they play, and they're fantastic at it. And like you said, it's great that Ethan Frank is back in. Now, he's a guy that hasn't scored his first career Calder Cup playoff goal just yet, but he's a guy that's a total X factor. The Bears have definitely missed him, but the boys have, really picked up the slack, that he, normally carries during the regular season when he was scoring 30 goals and, playing as incredibly well as he has played this season. So, great news. It looked like he was in a regular jersey, hoping he'll be on the ice for game 1 on Thursday night, and, can't ask for much more than to have him back. So, just hope that Ness comes back. Like you said, though, the Bears have so many forwards hanging around here. It's hardly, it's hardly a concern. It's a next man up mentality. Shingers, which was great in relief, so to speak. So no concern if somebody goes down. That's for sure.
Definitely not. I was concerned about Frank going down. That is the incredible season that he's had. Only to this is how his season is going to end by some stupid play in the playoffs, and he goes down. But he's back at it. So and yeah, hard to believe he has not scored a goal yet. I believe he's due. I think he'll be one of those players that when he gets going, he's going to start ripping goals here in the postseason. So I believe that it's due theory for Ethan Frank and his play. But it seems like the Bears really got some good productivity out of their middle and bottom 6, especially in game 4. Protoss, those 2 big goals that caused me to lose my voice last Thursday night. And Beck getting on the board as well with a beautiful breakaway. You love to see these third and fourth line guys pick up the slack once you get to the postseason. And we see this all the time, especially in the NHL. That's how championship teams are made, when you have guys down the depth line getting goals.
Absolutely. And, it's even funny to call guys like Mallenstein and Protas, depth guys. They're both guys that spent time with Washington over the course of the season and, are very well regarded by the Capitals in that respect. And it was so funny, like you mentioned with that Protas goal. I'm sure you saw it on Twitter that, Alexei Protas's, billet dad from his junior days, Roger Page, I hope I'm saying that right, tweeted me and said he's manifesting a Protas goal in the playoffs. And I kid you not, minutes later, that was when that third goal stood up as the game winner happened. So he absolutely called it. And, it was one of those things, just couldn't believe in the moment. So I'm hoping we have many more goals like that the rest of this playoff run back from those guys. But, you think about all the guys that score goals. I mean, the Bears had 9 different goal scorers over the first 2 games. And there was a lot of guys that were tallying their first playoff goals. And it's hard to, believe guys like Joe Snively and, Connor McMichael and, many others I'm sure I'm forgetting here too. Obviously, Protas and Mallenstein or other ones, that just because of how the last couple of years have gone, COVID, the shortened season, how last year went, it is this, the first genuine seeming run that the Bears have had in a sense. So it's really exciting. It's great to see that you have all these guys that are making contributions. It felt like Beck Mallenstein was going to put the entire team on his back and carry them through that game 4 by himself, it seemed like. So, more of that. That's championship caliber stuff, those kind of step up games. So it's really encouraging signs. And, little things like the bear roar, the this that the guys do on the bench on the way over there. You saw Beck do it after his goal, and it gets you pumped up. I get pumped up watching that clip, and, just absolutely adore it. I think it's all, the DNA of a team that, can go for a long run here in these playoffs for sure.
Well, here's definitely hoping that, like, you do love to see stuff like that, and how a team can respond to adversity when they got punched in the mouth in Game 3. Now, again, as we said, Charlotte's too proud to go down 3-0, and they were not going to. But there's part of me that I think believes a little bit that this team kind of thought that, oh, well, these guys are done. They're going to go down. No, they played desperate, and it got them a game, and it nearly got them Game 4. And I think Hartford is going to be much harder. And we talked about in the previous series that the Bears are going to have to exercise playoff demons. And we thought Providence was going to be one of them. It's not. It's Hartford, but we actually owe Hartford, I think, from 13-14. Didn't 13-14 they knock us out?
You were thinking 2015. 13-14 was the year they missed.
Okay. Right, that's the Mike Havlant year that we never, ever speak of again. We do not speak of that. Right, 14-15, the Bork brothers, a young Madison Bowie was on that team, I believe. And a young, fresh Riley Barber, I think, was on that team as well. I think a young Travis Boyd was there as well. But, that's another team that's hard to believe about a decade ago. Oh my God. A nearly decade ago that knocked us out of the postseason.
And it's wild to consider on the, we've come full circle in a sense, because Dylan McElrath played for the Wolfpack in that series. Now he plays for the Bears. I can remember, he was such a thorn in the Bears' side. I still have vivid memories of him just making life miserable for the Bears in that series. And that was the Bears team that I was very confident. I was very high on the 14-15 iteration of the Bears. They had so many good veteran guys. And, that, as you alluded to, they made way for a lot of those younger guys that were responsible for the 2016 run in due time, And obviously that was, back when they still had Chris and Ryan Bork in Hartford Wolfpack sweaters for that season. And, they reveled in, being playoff spoilers for the Bears, I think, in a lot of ways. And, just totally different times back then, of course. But like you said, it's still one of those things where you looked at that table of teams that came out of the play-in round, you're sort of like, wow, we owe every single team playoff series in this respect somewhere. And, like you said, exercise some demons. We thought it was going to be Providence. We just seemed destined to have to take a game at Amica Mutual Pavilion at long last at some point, but, seems to be put off for another day, of course. But Hartford's no slouch. They had that series earlier in the year back in November, I believe, late November, where they played 4 out of 5 games against each other. It was a mini playoff series. And, the Bears were obviously, played well enough to take 4 of the 6 games. Now, obviously, of course, that is totally different now. I would really like to, sit here and tell you that, the Bears should be able to do what they did back then, but let's just be honest. It's totally different rosters at this point. It's half a year later has passed. We flipped the calendar since then. Even the game in, back in February 11th, I believe, was the last time they played. The Bears were riddled with illness. The Wolfpack were most likely the same. The Bears had to ride on a, Henry Rabinski shorthanded goal. It was just different times. So it's like you said, it feels like a brand new matchup, and the Bears owe Hartford back a little bit for that 2015 team for sure.
So let us cast our eyes back to that a little bit. Some players that were on that Hartford squad. Buckle up, Bears fans, for this. Of course, Chris and Ryan Bork were on that team. Oscar Lindbergh, Joey Crabb on that team as well. Jan Denise. Let's see here. All right, Chris Mueller, Sean O'Donnell, Ryan Haggerty, to name a few. Tyler Brown, Tommy Hughes. I'm just reading off from the Bears app of the game details on it. And of course, for the Bears at the time, Tim Kennedy, Jim O'Brien, Liam, Nate Schmidt, Tim Kennedy, Jacob Verona. God, I miss all these guys. All in for the Bears on both squads. I mean, Casey Wellman as well, Chris Connor Carrick, Garrett Mitchell, Jacob Verona, Eric Bergdorfer. Bears fans are going, yes, 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 as well. So that's how far back it goes. And Jan Denise wasn't net for Hartford at the time. So
I believe for Hershey, was it not a young Philip Grubauer that was in goal there too for the Bears?
Let me bring the app back up for a second here. Yes, that was a Philip Grubauer that was in net. His backup was number 30, Phoenix Copley. That's when we had the Gruby Phoenix connection back in net there in 2014. And hard to believe, one of those men is starting in an NHL playoff game. And one of them could have been. Kings, I'm looking at you. I'm looking at you, Kings. And don't sell me Corpusalo. Just give Phoenix one game. That's all I asked. One game. Doesn't have to be a start. Just one game. One game. Just because I want a playoff Phoenix jersey.
Well, he did make it in for a little bit of the one game, right?
I think he came in relief.
It was basically after it was over, though, at that point. Like,
yeah.
They did not help him out at all, if I recall that particular game correctly.
Yeah, Connor McDavid basically just said, all right, enough of this. So let's wrap this up here, Corey. Predictions. How do we think this is going to go? A certain someone nailed the series correctly. Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you very much. Please send cash. Credit cards hurt. You nearly had your sweep. You nearly had it, if not for 2 breakaway goals.
I was about to say I was close. I was very close, and I am disappointed that I'm only just close because we could be talking about it right now. I remember saying that to you in the parking lot after that game. Was that close, man? That close.
Yeah. So my prediction is going to go as this. I think this is going to be a lengthy series. I think this is going to be hard checking, bloody fists, and a few marbles short. But I think the Bears just squeak this out. 5 games, probably a couple of overtime games there. I think Bears take it in 5. It's going to be rough, though. It's going to be a rough series.
I'm going to say it's going to be rough too, but I'm going to go Bears in 4. And the main reason for this is that, I don't really feel like Providence played up to snuff with how, I remember seeing them from the regular season. It just didn't feel like it was quite the same team in a sense. And I kind of blame the layover for that. The Bears' preparation has been second to none. I do think we're going to be into, maybe pitch, maybe a little bit of a stinker, kind of like we saw in the Charlotte series, but the Bears have learned a lot. And I feel like it's kind of, it's kind of like in, something like Dragon Ball Z, right? Where they keep beating up Goku and he keeps getting up.
Mm-hmm.
And then he'll deliver a counter punch and they'll say, whoa, he's been watching my moves this entire time and getting stronger. And like, that's kind of feels like how the Bears have been, right? Like they play their system very well. And, when they're on, they're absolutely on. But, they're still learning a little bit. And I feel like, we haven't seen the peak. We haven't gotten quite those big performances from guys like, like you said, Ethan Frank hasn't been in. But, the Mike Scarbosas and Mike Vecchionis haven't even had to, have their monster performances yet. So I think this team still has a little bit more to give. In a sense, obviously Hartford does too. I'm not trying to take anything away from, what they've done here. But I'd like to, say with my preview, this is the time where the Bears really show us what their full power potentially is. And we see some glimpses of all that stuff we've dreamt about for many years. So I'm going to say 4. I think the Bears are going to find, they're going to win a lot of close games like they did against Hartford in the regular season. Like these will not be beat downs by any stretch, but the Bears will get to that form of where they're taking close games, I think.
You are tapping into my DBZ fandom, and I love it. I absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. I could actually double down on that a bit, where to you keep saying the full power on that like this reminds me of one of my favorite anime series, Yu Yu Hakusho, and where at the beginning of the second season, stay with me on folks, please don't go away, one of the villains from the previous arc comes back and approaches Yusuke and said, "You only beat me at 30%." And they meet at this construction site. Bulks himself up to 60% and says, "This is what I can do." And just jumps around and systematically picks the building apart with kicks, steel beams, girders falling down, but he's quick enough to knock everything down so nothing hits Yusuke. Couple seconds later, there's rubble, but a circle around Yusuke among the rubble where Toguro didn't hit him. And Toguro just grabs his coat and says, "This is the last time I save you, boy," and walks off. The Bears could pull off that type of power situation with Hartford. And a little long in the tooth, but been waiting to bust that out for a while. And I think this is one of the times where the Bears really could, if they really tap into that full offensive potential, I think they can take down Hartford, but it ain't going to be easy. It is not going to be easy. So that will do it for this episode. But before we do go, Corey, thank you so much for coming on as always, brother. And, give you a second to promote your credentials. And I believe you had a new article coming out there on Field Pass Hockey. So the board is thine, brothers.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, you can find me over at HBH Nation blog. That's where the majority of my stuff goes, as well as at FPH Bears. Those are my two accounts there. Usually on game day, I have a hard time focusing on more than one at a time. So it will usually be the HBH Nation blog is the page to really see for everything. But, we have articles going up on there as well as, Field Pass Hockey, kind of, covering everything, every corner of this series here at this point. We got a preview coming up. We were talking a little about the Mike Scarbosa extension and, really kind of going in depth on some of the, major elements to know about this preview series. So yeah, lots to read over there if you're interested in covering more of the series there. But yeah, game day stuff, highlights, videos, everything that's in between. We try to be a good source for you for sure. So thanks for having me on, Richard. I really appreciate it. It's always fun when we get to have these shows, and I hope we get to have many more as this month progresses.
I hope so. Well, I hope we were doing one near the end of the month where we were talking about conference finals with the Bears, whomever they might play against the North. And my dreams of a Hershey-Rochester playoff series might actually come to fruition. Please, hockey gods, I hope this happens. But that, hopefully, is another show. So thank you, Bears fans, for listening to this, however you did by the video or the audio. Please give a like to the video. Share this around to other Bears fans to listen to this as well. We will have recaps on Monday of both games. The podcasts are still going to keep flowing as long as this keeps going. And Bears fans, I know you're ready. Hartford fans are going to be ready because they're going to be coming from Connecticut. Assured you and me. And I'll be ready. And as I've said before, from a song from Tangled the series, I'm ready as I'll ever be. See you Thursday, Bears fans. We'll see you at Giant Center.